Hi guys, today we're going to learn about solving rational inequalities. So the first thing that you need to do, and please note that we're going to be using sign charts to solve this inequality, is you need to make sure that you have the zero on the other side. Okay, after that you need to have a whole rational expression, meaning it needs to have a common denominator, and after that, in this case, we need to factor. Okay, so I'm going to factor the situation, and you recognize that at the top you have the x as a common factor, so you have x times x plus 2, and then you recognize that the denominator, beautifully you can factor it as a difference of squares, having x minus 3, x plus 3, and this is going to be less or equal than 0. So after that you need to create your number line. Okay, so I would do a number line here, and you're going to tell me which numbers are we going to put. Okay, so what we know of the on the number line is that it goes to infinity and comes from negative infinity. Okay, so the numbers that we are going to put here are going to be the ones that make your factors to be 0. So I'm going to list them here so you know which ones to pick. Obviously 0, it would be one number that we want. Negative 2, it would be the other number that we want because it makes this factor 0. The other one that you don't want because it makes your denominator 0 is going to be 3. And the next one that we also don't want is the negative 3. Okay, so these are the numbers that we are going to have to label in your number line. Okay, so now we need to obviously do it in order. So you have to start with your negative 3, then my negative 2, then you have your 0 and the 3. Are we okay with that? So after that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the factors here, list all my factors. In this case I have x, then I have x plus 2 as my second factor. The third factor that I have in this case is x minus 3, and the fourth factor is x plus 3. So after that, I'm just going to do a line to keep things organized here. Okay, so what are we going to do? I'm going to select a number that it's in between negative infinity and negative 3 without including the extremes, meaning I can select negative 4. If I plug negative 4 here, I have a negative number. If I plug negative 4 here, you have also a negative number. If you plug negative 4 here, you have a negative number as well. And if you plug a negative 4 here, that's still negative, so you have a bunch of negatives. Okay? So after that, I'm going to plug the actual negative 3. So if you plug negative 3 here, it's going to be a negative number. If you plug negative 3 here, it's going to be a negative. If you plug negative 3, it's going to be negative 6, which is obviously negative. And if you plug negative here, that's going to be a 0. Okay? Then I'm going to plug a number in between negative 3 and negative 2. Okay, so that number, for example, you can plug something that it's a decimal, kind of like negative 2.5. If I plug that number here, it's going to be negative. If I plug negative 2.5, it's going to be negative still. If I plug negative 2.5 here, it's going to be negative. And if I plug negative 2.5 here, wow, it's going to be positive here. Okay, so after that, I'm going to plug the negative 2 here, which is going to be negative, the negative 2 here, which is going to be 0, the negative 2 here, which is going to be negative, and the negative 2 that it's going to be negative 2 plus 3 positive. Okay, after that, I'm going to plug a number in between negative 2 and 0. Obviously, I'm going to plug the negative 1. So if I plug the negative 1 here, you know that that number is negative. If you plug negative 1 here, that's going to be positive. If I plug negative 1 here, it's going to be negative. If I plug negative 1 here, it's going to be positive. Are we okay with that? So after that, I'm going to plug the 0. If you plug 0 here, that's going to be 0. If you plug 0 there, that's going to be positive. 0 here is going to be negative. 0 here, that's going to be positive. Okay? After that, you plug a number in between 0 and 3. In that case, I would select 1, or you can select 2, whatever you prefer. I would do 1. 1, if I plug 1 here, that's going to be 1, which is positive. Then if I plug 1 here, that's going to be positive. If I plug 1 here, that's going to be negative 2, which is negative. If I plug 1 here, that's going to be positive. Okay, after that, I'm going to plug 3. If I plug 3 there, it's going to be positive. If I plug 3 here, it's going to be 5, which is positive. If I plug 3 here, it's going to be 0. If I plug 3 here, that's going to be positive. Okay? After that, what do you have? You're going to select a number in between 3 and infinity. okay, any number. In this case I would select 4. Okay, if I select 4, that's going to be positive, this one is going to be positive, this one is going to be positive as well, and the last one is going to be positive as well. Are we okay with that? Now you need to look at your equation that you have over here. You have the multiplication of the first 2 divided by the second 2. So negative and negative is positive, but negative and negative is positive, so you have a positive divided by a positive, which is positive. Okay, so this one is positive. Then you move on to the next 2. So you know that this is positive, but this is 0. Positive divided by 0 is undefined. Okay, so make sure that you are aware of that. After that, you know that this is negative and negative is going to be positive, and negative and positive is going to be negative. So you have a positive divided by a negative, which is going to be negative. After that, this one is going to be negative times 0, 0 divided by a negative, it's going to be 0 either way. Okay, so this one is negative times a positive is going to be negative, negative times a positive is going to be a negative, so negative over negative is going to be positive. Okay, then we move on to the next one. You have 0 times positive is 0 divided by a negative is going to be 0. This one is going to be positive times a positive, which obviously is a positive, divided by a negative, because negative times a positive is negative, so this is going to be negative. Okay, after that you have that positive divided by a 0 is going to be undefined. Okay, and last but not least, you have positive divided by a positive, that's obviously a positive. Now let's look back to your equation again. You want that equation with those factors is less or equal than 0. Okay, so for this equation, what do you want? You want that it's less than 0, meaning negatives. Okay, so we want also the zeros. Okay, meaning now we're going to write this in interval notation. So what's your solution? Your solution is going to be from negative 3 to negative 2, and you're going to include the negative 2. Okay, then union. Okay, and you're going to start at 0, including the 0. Okay, to positive 3. Okay, but you're not going to include the positive 3, and that's it for this example. Okay, so for problem number 2, what we're going to do here, let's look at that one. Okay, so this one clearly is not 0, so what I'm going to do here is first I'm going to take care of that. So you have 2x minus 7 divided by x minus 5, and this is going to be negative minus 3, and then it's going to be less than 0. Okay, why I'm leaving that space? Because I know that the least common denominator is x minus 5, so I need this one to have the same denominator. To make that happen, I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom times x minus 5 of this negative 3. Okay, so when I do that, what I have, and let me write it here, so you have 2x minus 7, and then you're going to distribute this negative 3 here and here, having negative 3x plus 15, everything divided by x minus 5, and less than 0. Okay, after that, what you're going to do is you are going to combine your like terms, this guy and this guy, having negative x, and then you have to combine the constant terms, which are these two, which is 8, and then x minus 5 less or equal to 0. After that, if you don't like the negative, what I would recommend you to do is multiply both sides times negative 1. When you multiply both sides times negative 1, remember when we are talking about inequalities, you need to flip your inequality, meaning what you're going to have is you multiply negative 1 times this side, and the 0 doesn't change, so you have this equation. Okay, so once you have this equation, we are going to do our number line again. So let me just create my number line here. Okay, so if I have my number line, I have that it starts at negative infinity, ends at positive infinity, and then the numbers that you want for this case are going to be 8, well, we don't want, and 5, right? Okay, so obviously we're going to write my 5 here first and then your 8, okay? And then you put your factors here, okay? So your factors are x minus 8 and x minus 5. Okay, so now that you have your factors here, you are going to select a number in between. I'm going to do this line just to keep it organized, okay? So you are going to select a number in between negative infinity and 5 to plug it in these two factors. So honestly, I would do I don't know, 0. Okay, so if you plug 0, this is going to be negative and this is going to be negative. If you plug 5 here, that's going to be negative and this is going to be 0. Now plug a number between 5 and 8. Okay, that 6, you can plug 6. If you plug 6 here, that's going to be negative and this is going to be positive. If I plug 8 here, this is going to be 0 and this is going to be positive. And then last but not least, select a number in between 8 and infinity. I would select, I don't know, you can select 9. If you plug 9 here, that's going to be positive. If you plug 9 here, that's going to be positive as well. Now look at your equation here. So it's going to be negative divided by a negative. You know that that's positive, okay? Then you know that it's going to be negative divided by a 0. You know that that's undefined, okay? Negative divided by positive, that's going to be negative. 0 divided by a positive, that's going to be 0. And positive divided by a positive, it's going to be positive. Okay, so now look at your equation here. Okay, what do you want in this situation? You want greater than 0 or equal. Okay, so I want the positives, obviously, and I want the 0. Okay, so now what's going to be your result for this one? Well, since you have the number line, it's pretty straightforward. It's going to be from negative infinity to 5. Okay, so you want from negative infinity to 5. You are not going to include the 5 because it's undefined at 5. Then you move on and it's going to be union, and it's going to be from 8 to infinity, but you do want the 8 because at 8 is 0. Okay, and this is your result. So for problem number 3, what you can recognize immediately is that you don't have a 0, so we need to move this term to the other side. So what you have here is going to be 5 divided by x minus 3 minus 2 divided by x plus 2 greater than 0. Okay, so you can recognize here that the least common denominator here is x minus 3, x plus 2. Okay, so what we can do here is you recognize that here I'm missing the x plus 2. So what I'm going to do here, so you know what I'm doing, I'm going to multiply top and bottom times the one that I'm missing, which in this case is x plus 2. Okay, so you multiply top and bottom of that term times x plus 2, and then you have the second term, which is negative and 2, x plus 2, and then you are missing the x minus 3 top and bottom, so that's what I'm going to do here. And that's a negative, okay? And that's greater than 0, okay? So when you do this, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to distribute this 5 here and here. Okay, so first and foremost, you recognize that finally we have common denominator, which is this one. Okay, so you have that that's going to be 5x, and then 5 times 2 is going to be 10. Then you have negative 2 times x is going to be negative 2x, and negative 2 times negative 3, that's a negative, remember. It's a plus 6, and it's greater than 0. Okay, after that you are going to combine like terms. In this situation, 5x minus 2x is going to be 3x, and plus 10 plus 16, that's going to be plus 6, excuse me, it's going to be a plus 16, and that's going to be all divided by x minus 3, x plus 2 greater than 0. Okay, so at this point you are like, so now what? Okay, so at this point you have everything as factors. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do my number line, and let's do it here. Okay, so you have your number line, and then remember it comes from negative infinity, it goes to positive infinity. And what are the numbers that we have for the situation? Okay, so the numbers that we have for the situation, it's going to be negative, this is a factor, so it's going to be negative 16 divided by 3 is your first number. Then this factor, the 3 is the one that you want, and this factor, the negative 2, is the one that you want. Okay, so in order, you know that the negative 16 over 3 goes first, then you have the negative 2, and then we have the positive 3. Okay, so the factors that we have, let me list them. It's going to be 3x plus 16. The second factor that we have is x minus 3, and the third factor that we have is x plus 2. Okay, so let me just do my little line here so you can see everything. Okay, so I'm going to select a number in between negative infinity and negative 16 over 3. Okay, if you want, you can just select something safe, which is, I don't know, negative 10. Okay, so if you plug negative 10 here, you know that that's going to be negative. This is going to be negative, and this is going to be negative. Okay, so after that, you just plug the negative 16 over 3 here. You know that the negative 16 over 3 here, that makes 0 your factor. Then this one will make that negative, and this one will make that negative as well. Okay, then select a number in between negative 16 over 3 and negative 2. I would select negative 3. Okay, so if you plug negative 3 here, you know that that one is going to be positive. If you plug negative 3 there, that's going to be negative. And if you plug a negative 3 there, it's going to be negative as well. Okay, after that, you plug the negative 2 here. If you plug the negative 2, that's going to be positive. If you plug the negative 2, that's going to be negative. If you plug the negative 2 here, it's going to be 0. Okay, after that, I would select a number in between negative 2 and 3. For me, 0 is always my favorite. So if I plug 0 here, that's going to be positive. If I plug 0 there, it's going to be negative. 0 there, positive. If you plug 3 here, that's going to be positive. If you plug 3 here, it's going to be 0. 3 there, positive. Okay? And after that, you select a number in between 3 and infinity, which I would select 4. So if you plug 4 here, this is going to be positive. If you plug 4 there, it's going to be positive. If you plug 4 here, it's going to be positive as well. We'll okay with that. Now, you need to look at your equation that we have over here. Okay, so you have this one divided by this 2. So it's going to be negative divided by negative times a negative. So it's going to be negative divided by a positive, which you know that it's negative. Then you know that it's going to be 0 divided by a positive, which is going to be 0. Then you know that it's going to be positive divided by negative times a negative is positive, so positive over positive is positive. Okay, then you know that this one is going to be undefined because you have a positive divided by a 0. After that, you have a positive divided by a negative, which is going to be negative. Then you have a positive divided by a 0, which is going to be again undefined, which makes a lot of sense. And then you have a positive divided by a positive, which is positive. Now, look at your equation here. What do you have in this equation? Well, you have that you only want greater than. You don't have any equals, so you only want the positive side. Positive and positive, okay? So you don't want the 0 this time. Okay, so what's your conclusion here? What are the numbers that we want in this situation? Thus, my solution set is going to be from negative 16 over 3 to negative 2 without including the extremes, union 3 to positive infinity. Okay, and that's your answer. For number 4, what you have is something very similar to 3 and 2, but here you need to move. Okay, so the first thing that you would do here is moving the 1. So you have 5 divided by x minus 1 minus 2x divided by x plus 1, and then obviously I would put the 1 there. Okay, so you have your 0 here. Now you recognize that your least common denominator in this equation is x minus 1, x plus 1. Okay, so having that, I need to make sure that all my terms have the same denominator, okay, which is x minus 1, x plus 1. Okay, so this one, let's start with that one. You have the 5 divided by x minus 1, so it's missing the x plus 1 divided by x plus 1. Then you have the negative 2x divided by x plus 1. That one is missing the x minus 1, okay? And then the 1 is missing everything. Look at that, okay? So you need the x minus 1, x plus 1 divided by x minus 1, x plus 1. And that one less or equal than 0. So as you can see, you are multiplying your terms times magical ones, which they don't affect your equation. They make it look pretty, okay? So now I'm going to distribute each one of these situations, okay? So I'm going to distribute the 5 here and here, okay? First and foremost, I know that everything will have common denominator. Yay, that's what we wanted, right? Okay, so you have 5x plus 5, okay, because I distribute here and here. Then watch out with this negative 2x times this negative 2x squared. Negative 2x times this one is going to be positive 2x. And then you have that this one is the difference of squares, so you know that the multiplication of this is x squared minus 1, but you have a negative, so it's going to be negative x squared plus 1, and that's going to be less or equal to 0, okay? So after that, obviously, you need to combine like terms, okay? So what I have here is negative 3x squared, and then you have the linear terms here, which makes 7x, and then the constant terms, you have a 6 positive, and then this divided by x minus 1, x plus 1, less or equal than 0. Honestly, what I'm seeing here is, you know that I love my leading coefficient to have positive value, and this one is not. So I'm going to multiply both sides times negative 1. When I do that, I need to be very careful because I'm going to flip the side of my inequality, okay? So I'm going to multiply times negative 1. If you are thinking, what is she doing? I'm multiplying both sides times negative 1, okay? So you have 3x squared minus 7x minus 6. The denominator stays the same. The cool thing is that when I multiply times negative 1, the 0 times negative 1, it's still a 0. Okay? So this one, at least for me, it's much easier to factor it. Okay? Use your favorite factoring method. You know that this is going to be 3x plus 2 times, this is going to be x minus 3. Divided by x minus 1, x plus 1. Look how beautiful it looks, greater or equal than 0. Okay, so now you need to look for your numbers, the numbers that we care. So we need to check out the factors. So the numbers that I have, the one that I have for this one is going to be the beautiful number negative 2 over 3. Then for this one is going to be the 3. For this one is going to be the 1, and then for this last one it's going to be negative 1. Okay, so remember, you always look for the numbers that make your factors 0. Okay, so then I'm going to, you know that what I'm about to do. I'm going to draw my number line. Okay, so you have from negative infinity to positive infinity, and we're going to use all these numbers. The smallest that I have is negative 1. After that I have negative 2 over 3. After that I have the 1, and then I have the 3. Okay, so I'm going to put my factors here, so I evaluate each one. This one is going to be longer because I have 4 factors, but that's fine. Okay, so you have 3x plus 2 is your first factor. Your second factor is x minus 3, then x minus 2, x plus 2, and then I'm going to do the operation. Okay, so to have this. Okay, so you are going to select a number in between negative infinity and negative 1. Okay, I would do negative 2. If you plug negative 2, that's going to be negative. This is going to be negative. This is going to be negative, and this is going to be negative. Surprise, surprise, everything negative. If you plug negative 1 here, that's going to be negative. If you plug negative 1 here, negative, and negative 1 here, negative, and here is going to be 0. Okay. After that, if you plug any number in between negative 1 and negative 2/3, okay, so that's, I don't know, negative 0.75. Okay, if you plug that one here, that's going to be negative. If you plug negative 0.75 here, it's going to be negative. If you plug that one here, it's going to be still be negative, and this one here is going to be positive. And we'll cover that. So now we plug the negative 2/3 here, so that one is going to be 0. That one is going to be negative. Okay, if you plug that one here, it's going to be negative, and if you plug that one here, it's going to be positive. After that, what you have is you need to plug a number in between negative 2/3 and 1. That one for me is 0. If I plug 0 here, that's positive. If I plug 0 here, that's negative. If I plug 0 here, it's negative. If I plug 0 here, that's going to be positive. Okay, so you have that situation. Then you plug the 1. If you plug 1 here, that's positive. If you plug 1 here, it's negative. 1 here, it's going to be 0, and 1 here, it's going to be positive. After that, I'm going to plug the 2. Why the 2? Because it's in between 1 and 3. Okay, so you have the 2, so it's going to be positive. The 2 here is going to be negative. The 2 here is going to be positive, and the 2 here is going to be positive. After that, you plug the 3 here, having this positive. If you plug 3 here, is 0. 3 here, it's going to be positive. 3 here is going to be positive. Okay, and last but not least, we're going to select a number in between 3 and infinity. That magical number can be 4, or well, you can plug 100, but I'm just going to plug 4. Plug 4, positive, 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 and positive. Yay! Okay, so we're done with the table, but we're not done yet. Why? Your equation here tells you that the first two factors, the multiplication divided by the multiplication of the second two factors. So basically is this multiplication divided by this one. So negative and negative is positive, divided by negative times negative, which is positive. So positive over positive is positive. This one is positive, this one is 0, so that one, oof, it's undefined. Okay, this one is positive, this one is negative, so it's going to be negative. This one is 0, so we really care about this one? Not really, it's a 0, so that's 0. This is negative because positive and negative is negative. Negative and positive is negative, so negative over negative, wow, it's positive. Okay, so then you move on to this one. Positive times a negative is negative. Divided by 0, you don't care because that's undefined. Yikes. Okay, after that you are like, okay, so positive and negative is negative, divided by a positive, that's negative. Positive times 0 is 0, divided by whatever, it's going to be 0. Okay, so then you have that positive divided by a positive, that's a beautiful positive. Okay, so at this point you are like, oof, that's a lot. True, 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 but you know a lot. Okay, so you have your equation here, greater or equal. This one has the equal, so remember we want the zeros. Okay, you also want greater than, so I like the positive ones here, here, and here. Okay, so let's write our solution here. So thus, what's going to be my solution for this expression? Well, it's going to be from negative infinity to negative 1. Obviously you are not going to include the negative 1 because you have an ugly on definition there. After that we want this one, which is negative 2/3, which we are going to include, and then you are going to end at 1, but you don't want the 1. Okay, and moreover you have another interval here, union. Okay, so what's going to be the other interval? Well, it's going to be from 3, which you do want because it's 0, and then to infinity. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Hope